My name is Matilda Reckford. I'm the project manager for the EHLS program at the Center for Applied Linguistics, and I'm joined today by Meredith Schumacher, who's at the Institute of International Education. Meredith?
Hi, my name is Meredith Shoemaker. As Matilda said, I work with IIE, the Institute for International Education. I'm a program specialist. I work primarily with our application and selection system, as well as program data.
Okay, go to the next slide. So some of us might know Zoom features, but be less familiar with the webinar Zoom features. So you'll see that we have a Q&A box, so feel free to enter any questions or comments throughout our webinar in the Q&A box, and we will answer them writing or speaking along the way, and also at the end if we have time. And you'll notice you cannot unmute or put your video on, but we will answer your questions via the Q&A as much as we can. All right. So during this webinar, we're going to talk about the English for Heritage Language Speakers program. We're going to talk about what it offers and its requirements. We're going to go into details about the application process and talk a little bit about the skills testing. We're also going to talk about the application process and provide some tips to keep in mind as you apply. So like I said, throughout the presentation, please type your questions in the Q&A box, and we're going to stop along the way to answer as many as we can. All right, let me do a little overview of the EHLS program. So EHLS is a scholarship program with a focus on professional English communication skills and career skills. The program trains advanced speakers of English to be effective communicators and strong candidates for federal jobs. It is hosted by Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Every scholar admitted to the program receives a full scholarship funded by the federal government. The program is 8 months in length. The first 6 months are full-time on the Georgetown University downtown campus, and the final 2 months are part-time and online. Participants are native speakers of critical languages who have a strong interest in public service. EHLS scholars come from diverse cultural, educational, and professional backgrounds, but are all united by a common interest and commitment to public service. All right. So EHLS was established because critical language skills are in high demand in the US government. There are other government-sponsored programs to teach critical languages to native English speakers, but this is the only program designed to prepare individuals with native knowledge of critical languages for the federal workplace. So EHLS is a partnership among 4 organizations: the Defense Language and National Security Education Office, or DELENCIO, that provides funding, the Center for Applied Linguistics, where I work, that oversees instruction and coordinates language testing, Georgetown University, that provides instruction, and the Institute for International Education, that oversees the application process. EHLS was started in 2006, and 2024 will be the 19th program year, which is very exciting. Now, about scholarship benefits and terms. The scholarships are awarded through the Defense Language National Security Education Office, or DELENCIO, and each scholarship provides full tuition and fees for the 8-month academic program, in addition to a living stipend. That stipend is $3,600 a month during the first 6 months of the program, and $1,200 a month during the last 2 months of the program, the part-time online part of the program. If scholars are moving from outside Washington, D.C., DELENCIO can also reimburse relocation costs up to $1,000. There are other benefits to the program. You get health insurance through Georgetown University, a laptop computer, which you can use to complete assignments for the EHLS program and that you can keep after the program, and a certificate from Georgetown University that you'll receive after having completed the program. And that certificate itself opens a lot of doors, especially in the DC area. In terms of the scholarship terms, scholars must agree to a full-time attendance and successful completion of the academic program. They must agree not to work during the full-time portion of the academic program, so the first 6 months of the academic program in person in Georgetown. And they must accept the service requirement after completing the academic program. So that is 1 year of service in a position with the federal government with national security responsibilities. So our requirements are US citizenship at the time of application, be a native speaker of one of the languages listed here. You must have professional level proficiency in that language and have advanced proficiency in English. Your proficiency in English and your native language are going to be formally tested, and we're going to discuss the process of that testing later in the presentation. You must have a college degree, at least a bachelor's degree. You must be able to use the internet, word processing programs, and PowerPoint. You must be able to commit to a full-time day program from January through June in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University. And you must be willing to work for the federal government for 1 year in a position with national security responsibilities. It will be your responsibility to find that position after the program. Here are some important dates. The application is currently available. You can go on our website and find the link. The deadline for the application and supporting documents is 5 p.m. Eastern Time on July 6th. Once your application is submitted and considered complete, applicants will be invited to schedule an oral proficiency interview in English, so an OPI in English. OPIs are administered through July 21st, but we highly recommend submitting your application early so we can start scheduling your OPI as soon as possible. So you can find a time that fits your schedule between the time you submit your application and July 21st. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. We will notify candidates of their status in September. Some candidates will be provisionally selected to move on to skills testing. In late September, early October, provisionally selected applicants will complete language testing and basic technology testing. And you will also complete an oral proficiency interview, an OPI, in your critical language. In early November, we will notify candidates of their final status for participating in the program, which will start January 8th of 2024.
Great, thanks very much. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to apply for EHLS. EHLS has two main stages in the application process. All applicants will complete stage 1, while only some candidates will be invited to participate in stage 2. So steps 1 through 3, which are part of stage 1. Step 1, you're going to prepare your online application. Step 2, you will submit that application along with the required supporting documents. And then step 3, you will complete an OPI in English. An OPI is an oral proficiency interview, so basically a speaking test. And then after that has taken place, a much smaller number of applicants will be invited to participate in step 4, which is to take the language and technology skills test and receive notification of your results and status. So After you submit your application will undergo a technical review for eligibility and completeness. At that time, when your application is found to be eligible and complete, you will receive instructions on how to schedule your English OPI. You have, as Matilda said, until July 21st to take your OPI. Then applications who have met all of the requirements up to that point, so you've passed, you've met the minimum standard on the English OPI and submitted a complete application. Those applications will be reviewed and a certain number will be selected and invited to take the additional skills testing and language testing. Okay, next slide. Yeah. So there are 3 requirements in stage 1, which is to complete your online application, to confirm that all necessary supporting documents have been submitted. So that includes transcript evaluation if your transcript is from outside the US, resume, recommendation, etc. And then to complete your oral proficiency in English by July 21st. Okay, so please be sure to complete all sections of the application. Upload your supporting documents, your resume and your transcript to the application system. Please be aware that all foreign degrees must be evaluated. So you'll need to contact a credential evaluation service for this evaluation, and then you'll need to upload that evaluation to the application system. This can sometimes take time. It can take up to 2 months. So starting this process early is highly recommended to avoid missing the deadline. If you go into the application when you get to that transcript piece, we do have a link that will connect you to like a list of credential evaluation services. You don't have to use one of those services, but you can, and it gives you a place to start if you're not sure where to start. You must also have at least 1 professional reference. 2 are recommended. And you need to, a professional reference is someone who will write a recommendation letter for you. You'll enter their contact information into the online application system, and the system will send the request for them to complete the recommendation form. If possible, one of your recommendations should be from your current supervisor. You could also consider former supervisors or professors. We really ask that you keep it professional and do not choose family members or personal friends. You'll receive an automated email confirming the submission of your application when you submit it. And it will be, as I mentioned, reviewed for completeness and eligibility by the IIE staff. And then you'll get the email once that is confirmed that will give you the information about setting up your OPI. If we review your application and we find that there is something we have a question about, you will have a little bit of time. We'll email you and say, hey, we noticed that you submitted a transcript and no transcript evaluation. Could you please upload that? We'll reach out to you and give you a chance to correct whatever issue we found, or confirm if we think it's an eligibility issue to make sure that that's correct. So you're not just totally out necessarily. If we find something in your application, we will follow up with you. Next slide. You can access the EHLS 2024 application online from our website, ehlsprogram.org, which I hope many of you have already done, but if not, that's where you go. When you get to the home page, you can click on the tab that reads how to apply, and you'll find the information there that you need to move forward in your application process. This will take you to a page that outlines the components of the application, including the documents required, all of the steps, the timeline for this year's application cycle. And then to create or continue an application, you'll see the step 1, start an application, and then apply here. The online application form link will take you directly to the online application system. If you're starting an application for the first time, you will need to click Create an Account. If you already have an application open for this cycle, you can click Login. Be sure to click on this link every time you return to your application and log in with the same email address. If you use multiple email addresses, it might create multiple accounts, multiple applications, which can lead to confusion. So use the same email address, please. This year's application is independent from any previous year's application. So if you applied last year, you will need to create a new application this year. You'll have to start a new application. You don't necessarily have to create a new account, but you can if you want to use a different email address for a new application in the new year. If at any time in the application cycle you forget your password, you can reset it by clicking the Forgot Password link. This will trigger an automated email to be sent to the address that you enter. Do check your junk and spam folders if you reset your password. This is a system generated email. Sometimes it can get routed if you have an aggressive spam filter. So let's take a look at how you would create a new application. And there's just going to be a bunch of screenshots here, and bear with us with the screenshots. So when you click on create an account link, you'll be asked to register with your email address, first and last name, and birth date. Please be sure to use real information here, especially I know sometimes people don't feel good about putting in their real birth date or something like that because they're, data security. This is a secure system, and you will be asked to enter that information later to confirm who you are. So it's helpful if you put in the real information, you can find it later. And then you click continue. Once you've clicked continue, you're going to check your email, and it's going to have temporary login credentials for you. Please make sure to check your spam folder again in case it gets routed to spam. If you don't see it, always look to spam. Although if you don't see it in spam, you can contact us. You'll enter your temporary PIN and your birth date and click login. You'll then be prompted to create a new password. Once you've created a new password, click set password. You'll now be able to start your application. You'll click Start New Application. It'll open up a box. You'll click English for Heritage Language Speakers, and it'll open right up. So once you've selected Start New Application, you can proceed to create the application. You'll click on the EHLS application option, open the application, and it will take you to this first page, which you see that displays basic information regarding the program. So please do read this. This is EHLS for me, and basic information about the program can really be very informative. So you'll click continue, and that'll take you to the eligibility page. You must meet all of the eligibility requirements. You have to be a US citizen, a native speaker of one of the listed languages, and you must hold at least a bachelor's degree. If you don't meet all the criteria, you will not be able to continue with the application. After completing the eligibility section and you've been found to be eligible, you will be able to proceed with the application. The deadline, as we've mentioned, for submitting your application is July 6th, 2023 by 5 p.m.
Yeah, and what you said is a great reminder, the checking spam and junk, because we do have multiple stages of the application process where both us at Cal or IIE may email you. So that's definitely a great tip to always check your email and your junk.
All right. Oh, I do see another question that's come in, actually. I have a bachelor's degree from another country. Is that okay? So that is okay. As we mentioned, if you have a degree from a foreign country, that's acceptable, but you have to get the transcript evaluated. So basically there are credential evaluation companies that will look at your degree from outside of the United States and then will certify this is the equivalent of a US bachelor's degree, or this is the equivalent of a US master's degree. So you'll have to get a credential evaluation service to evaluate that transcript from your bachelor's degree, confirm that it's equivalent to the US bachelor's or higher, and then you will have to upload that transcript evaluation along with your transcript into the application itself.
So once your application is submitted and considered complete with at least one recommendation letter, applicants can proceed to scheduling an OPI or oral proficiency interview in English. So applicants cannot schedule your OPI until you have completed all components of the EHLS application and it has been reviewed for completion. The link and a step-by-step instruction document on scheduling an OPI in English will be emailed to applicants upon successful review of your application. OPIs are administered by LTI, Language Testing International. The OPI is a live 30 to 45-minute telephone conversation between a certified tester and the test taker. Through a series of personalized questions regarding the test taker's academic, professional, and personal experience, a sample of speech is elicited and rated in accordance to the Interagency Language Roundtable scale, or ILR scale, which is what that Q&A question was asking about earlier, and I'll get more into this scale in the next few slides. So candidates can choose to have an oral proficiency interview and with remote proctor. So you can only have an oral proficiency interview with a remote proctor once you're on the system. So a remotely proctored test can be taken from anywhere. You'll have a virtual proctor who will be there for test security. So they will make sure your environment is secure, and they will give you the contact information to call the OPI tester via telephone. So it is still, even though it's remote and it involves a computer for proctoring, it is still a phone conversation. OPIs are administered through July 21st, 2023, and your application must be submitted by 5 p.m. on July 6th. So that is a quite a small window. So we suggest that you submit your application as soon as possible so that you can secure a date and time that works for your schedule. You must submit an OPI, you must complete, your oral proficiency interview by midnight on Friday, July 21st, 2023. You cannot reschedule an OPI within 24 hours of the scheduled test time, and a missed OPI will not be rescheduled. Applicants who do not complete an English OPI or do not meet the minimum standard of, limited working proficiency, which is the ILR level 2, on the English OPI will be disqualified from consideration and will notify you of the decision. So stage 2, we talked about the stages earlier, is after the this provisional OPI testing, we'll go to test 2 and to stage 2, and at that point, about 50 provisionally selected candidates will go through the phase of additional tests in English, reading, listening, and writing, an OPI in your critical language, and a basic technology skills test. We have some more information on our website about the skills testing. So please check that part of our website that has a self-assessment on the technology skills and more information about all the testing. We offer admissions in early November, and we anticipate to select 18 scholars for this upcoming year. So the English language proficiency testing. So this is part of the stage 2. So this is when we do the listening and reading computer adaptive test, or LNR CAT. So it is also scheduled through Language Testing International. You'll take an hour writing test with 3 constructed response items. The test will be administered and proctored virtually by CAL, by us, the Center for Applied Linguistics. And we will also assess your basic technology skills in a proctored virtual assessment administered by CAL. These tests will evaluate candidates' general proficiency in English. The test questions will cover general interest topics in common social and professional situations. There are no sample test materials available for review. To prepare for the test, we recommend reading the newspapers, listening to the news on the radio, and using English and your native language in discussions of current events and professional context. You should be prepared to utilize a few different skills for the technology tests, such as file management, word processing, including accurate keyboarding, presentation software, internet navigation, and emailing. And later in this webinar, we will talk more about proficiency testing. All right. So the approximately 50 provisionally selected candidates will take an or proficiency interview in their critical language. Exactly like the OPI in English, the OPI in your critical language will cover general interest topics and common social and professional situations. The OPI will also be given over the phone and proctored remotely. If some of you are applicants who have native or high proficiency in 2 of the critical languages that we accept, for your online application, list the language in which you're most proficient. And for that, you can think about maybe the language of your education. So, for example, if you're a speaker of Uzbek and Russian, but you completed your college education in Russian, then we would suggest entering Russian as your language for the purposes of the application. All right, so the famous ILR or Interagency Language Roundtable scales. So the 5 tests for EHLS are all rated on this proficiency scale. This scale references tasks that you can complete, your vocabulary, your control of grammar, and your length of production. These are the 5 levels. There are also sub-levels in between of the scale. To qualify for EHLS, you will need to receive a score of at least 2, which is called limited working proficiency, in all 4 English skills. So those are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And you will demonstrate your English speaking during the first stage of the application. You will need to receive a score of at least 3, which is called general professional proficiency on the speaking test in your critical language. So what is a 2 on the ILR? On the ILR, an individual that has a level 2 will be able to satisfy most routine social demands and work requirements. They'll be able to narrate and describe the 3 major timeframes, make comparisons, deal effectively with complicated situations, able to navigate most informal and some formal settings, have a range of concrete topics of personal and general interest. The individual will be comprehensible to speakers who are unaccustomed to dealing with non-native speakers, and they'll be able to produce paragraph-length connected discourse in writing. And now for ILR 3, so the one that we use for your critical language. So you would speak the language with sufficient accuracy and vocabulary to participate effectively in most formal and informal conversations on practical, social, and professional topics. You'll be able to discuss topics extensively, hypothesize, support opinion, deal with a linguistically unfamiliar situation. You'll be able to navigate most informal and some formal situations. You can navigate a wide range of concrete topics and some abstract topics with special fields of interest and expertise. Your errors would almost never interfere with communication or distract the native speaker from the message. And you'll be able to produce extended discourse and conceptual links between paragraphs. So these are the levels, and this is kind of a broad description, but you can also go on the ILR website. If you type ILR scale or government ILR scale on the internet, you'll find a lot of details on their website on what these different levels mean, and that might be a helpful way to get accustomed to the scale before testing.
I will jump right in here with some tips for your application. So talking about stage one of the application, which is when you're doing your online application and getting everything in and then submitted. Um, we recommend that you use the information from your resume to complete the employment section of your application. The information that you fill into the application's employment section should be consistent with your resume. Make it easy for the reviewers to understand your education and work history and explain any gaps. So you will be uploading a full resume in addition to completing the employment section, but your resume can be longer than the employment section. The employment section, maybe you put the most recent or most relevant work experiences and again, explain any gaps. But you'll include as well your additional full resume, which might have publications or additional history that wouldn't be included just in the form of the education or employment section of the application. Another tip is to get your transcript documents as soon as possible. This is a big one. If your transcript, again, is from outside the United States, you will need to have it evaluated. And transcript evaluations must show that your degree is the equivalent of a U.S. bachelor's degree or higher. Again, we have a list of credential evaluation services on the website, and it's listed in the application. As Matilda mentioned earlier, she was talking about scheduling the OPI. She said, if you apply early and you get that application in early, you can schedule your OPI earlier. You can make it dates that work with you better. Another reason to get the application in early is that gives you more time should there be an issue with the transcript evaluation and you need to go back or get it reevaluated or submit some other documents. You have more time to do that if you submit early. So submitting earlier can be helpful in a number of different ways. Also asking for your references early. You will list your references and their contact information and send an email to them directly through the application system. They will then get a link to a reference form that they will need to complete. They will do this on their own. And once you request it by entering their name into the application, your part is done. You cannot upload reference letters for them. So you put in their information, you say, this is who I want to be my reference, here's their contact information. The system sends them a link to the form that they have to complete. We recommend that you make sure that you talk to your references in advance so they know that this is happening. They're looking for the email, they're expecting it. And also follow up with them after you submit the reference request through the system, just to make sure they got it. Again, things can get routed to spam. You don't want to sort of leave that to chance. And we recommend, again, submitting the application sooner rather than later, not just to get the OPI scheduled, but also so you have additional time for any kind of follow-up that we might have. So looking at the essay section, are we good? Did I do that? Okay. Sorry. So with regards to the essays, write specific and detailed essays. It's really important that you clearly demonstrate your interest in working for the federal government. Also, with regards to the essays, I would say sometimes in the essay question, there might be more than one thing that you are asked to address. It might say, please speak to, items A, B, and C. Make sure that you respond to each of the prompts in the essays thoroughly, that you answer all the questions that are being asked. And then review any program selection criteria. As you are writing your essay or before you write your essays, you can go onto the website and just see what am I being rated on by the reviewers who are looking at these applications, and try to make sure that you're writing strong essays that speak to those criteria. So that's a really good tip as well. Another tip that isn't noted here that I just want to share is write your essays in Word and paste them into the application. Word has, some word count functionality and spell check, and you can save it often. So this application will time out after, I think, 45 minutes or something like that. And if you just have your essay up and you're typing away, if you wander off for a minute, you go make a cup of tea, you forget to come back, and the application times out, you'll lose that progress. So if you're writing your essays in Word and saving them as you go, then you won't lose your work. So that's another tip as well. Okay, so this is a screenshot of the EHLS program website. The selection criteria definitions there, you can see the big arrow that reviewers are going to be using to assess each criteria. So please review the definitions so that you know what the application reviewers are looking for. So these are the people who decide if your application is recommended to go forward into that 50 that go into testing, and you want to be one of those 50. So you want to see that on the website, click that red link and review those criteria. And with that, I'll hand it back to Matilda.
Yes, so some more tips on the technology skills test. We recommend that you go and check also the EHLS website. We have a picture on the next slide. We have a technology skills self-assessment, so you can check that here. So yes, that's my additional tip. And now, as we're getting towards the end of our presentation, I want to remind you about our other virtual events that are coming up. I've highlighted the two webinars that are complementary information to this webinar, which is called Applying to EHLS. So we have a general information and a what to expect during and after EHLS webinar, where we address different topics of the EHLS program. So we talk more about Georgetown campus, your schedule as a student, and the general information, and the during EHLS portions of the webinars. And then we go a lot into the future after EHLS and the jobs you can apply to, the service requirement, all that information as well. So I really recommend attending the two other webinar topics that we have, and you can check the schedule. These are the most upcoming ones, but we have other webinars on those topics scheduled, so you can check our website and the upcoming events or information session sections. And we have live Q&As, which are kind of a smaller format. We give kind of an overview, and then the floor is kind of yours to ask us any questions. So if you're in the middle of your application and you think of a question, you can of course reach out. But if you want to join a Q&A and ask us more questions and have the chance to chat to some special guests that we'll have join some of our Q&As, including alumni. It might be very interesting for you to get to talk to an alumni or an instructor in the program. So you may have these opportunities in the Q&A sessions. So you can check our website and you can check our social media to learn more about all these upcoming events. So we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we also have a newsletter where we announce these virtual events as well as some in-person events. We'll be in New York very soon, and in a week, and different cities throughout the application period. So you can check our newsletters or our social media and have a chance to come in and meet us. So throughout your application, if you have any question, here are the best numbers to call for specific questions. So our colleague Maria Mariani, who works for Georgetown University, will be the best contact person for any questions about the curriculum, this program, the schedule, anything about Georgetown facilities. I would be your best contact person if you have questions about your or proficiency interview, anything about language testing. And Meredith's colleague, Anna, will be the best contact person for anything to do with the online application system. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for attending.